What is going on, Internet? My name is Lou, and I make Linux videos. Tonight I wanted to answer a question that I get probably more frequently than any other question on my channel, and that is, what Linux distribution are you using, and desktop environment are you using, and why? So I've been distro hopping now for probably a week or so. So I've been using a lot of different distributions, testing on a lot of different desktop environments, one of which was KDE 5, which, I'll just throw a quick plug in there. I really love what's being done with KDE 5, although even after all the revisions, I don't feel like KDE is for me right now. I still applaud the KDE team for top-notch development and a real dedication to that project, and I think they've done some great things. I'll do a separate review on KDE 5, but the project is looking fantastic. So even though if it's not necessarily for me, I think there's been a ton of really great work, and I like what they've done. So right now, for a distribution, I'm using Ubuntu Gnome, and because I've been distro hopping, using an Ubuntu-based distribution just makes things easier. My system can be set up and installed very, very quickly, and I can test out different things and move on to the next distro. And right now, I'm using the GNOME desktop environment. And honestly, I haven't used it for over a year, and I'm kicking myself because I've fallen in love with gnome-shell all over again, and we'll go over some of the reasons why. This is not going to be a distro review, but it's just going to be telling you why I'm using what I'm using now. Again, I'm using Ubuntu because it's very easy to set up and get running, and it allows me to install a distro and get on with my work. It doesn't require me to spend a lot of time setting up and configuring the system, or having it break with an update and having to figure out what's going on. I think that's where a lot of frustration with Linux comes from. And so right now I'm using Ubuntu 14.10, which I think has been pretty solid for me. I haven't run into too many issues with it. So it's been running fairly stable. And the gnome-shell desktop environment is just a pleasure to use. So I love the fact that it's keyboard driven, because I'm very much a keyboard navigation kind of a guy. So I'll give you some examples. If you want to open up Firefox, you hit the super key, start typing the word fire, and then within split seconds, you can open up Firefox. You want to do something like terminal, type in TER, hit enter, and it's launched right off the bat. If you want to toggle between open applications, super and tab, or alt and tab, it's very simple, straightforward, and to the point. One of my favorite things is actually the dynamic desktops. So if we hit the super key or the overview key and we wanted to move something to a different desktop, you simply just drag it over here to the side and move it to that respective desktop. Now, if you wanted to do something like switch between desktops using the keyboard, all you've got to do is hold down Control and Alt on the keyboard, and then use the arrow keys up and down to go between your desktops. Phenomenal. So simple, straightforward, to the point, so easy to work with. I love that. Also, if we open up the tweak tool, one of the nice things about gnome-shell is extensions. I'm using 4 or 5 extensions right now, and I'll just say one thing about gnome-shell extensions. They're awesome, but I'm a huge fan of having the core functionality that helps me get work done built into the operating system as is. The reason why I don't like using things like extensions is because you're reliant upon the individual developer to maintain this extension. Every time gnome-shell receives a big rev, the potential of the shell breaking oftentimes falls back to the extension itself. I've had occurrences I remember in the past where I've had 5 or 6 extensions installed, gnome-shell updated, and then all of a sudden the shell would crash, and I wouldn't be able to log back into the shell until I removed all those extensions. So that's kind of one thing that I don't really care for too much. Now, you could argue and say, hey, well, just don't use extensions. Certain things, however, I really like to have an extension for, because that functionality is not there. One of the extensions I'm using right now is a drop-down terminal. So for those of you who have ever used Quake, this is an awesome little extension. It adds a drop-down terminal. You've got a little scroll bar here over on the side. We'll use top, and boom, there you go. You can have that terminal there and very easily accessible right off the bat. So I absolutely love that, and that's one of the extensions I use on a very, very regular basis. You've got the gradient top bar here, so if we turn it off, you can see how it goes completely opaque, and turn it on, it adds that nice gradient. I think it adds, adds a nice little look. Impatience. This actually is an extension that speeds up the gnome-shell animation speed. So this is what I have mine set to right now. So things are just really, really fast. Things move almost instantly, and I absolutely love it. I think that extension right there, really adds. Now again, if you shut this one off, there's a nice smooth transition, which is not necessarily slow, but it's a little bit more of a fluid, kind of pretty transition as opposed to, what I have here. It's still nice, but again, I like things really snappy, really quick. Now again, you can edit certain files to make the animation speed up, but that's just a nice little extension to make it easier. The media player indicator is going to add media controls within this menu over here, which I really think should be a part of the core functionality of the system, considering almost everybody uses a media player or listens to music, and so to have that, I think, should be kind of a requirement. But let's launch Banshee real fast. So if we go into Banshee and search for something, whoops, helps if I spelled it right. We're going to bring up some Bless the Fall, which I've been really into lately, and play the song. As you can see, now I have a nice media control here in this menu, which is great. Really like that extension as well. And so those are and of course I have the user theme extension also installed. So I can use themes. Go into the Appearance tab, and I've got a handful of different shell themes installed here. I'm using the default theme with just a gradient, but you've got all sorts of themes that you can use. Change the look and feel, complete look and feel of gnome-shell, and that's one of the really nice things about it. It's extremely versatile, and with extensions, you can really get the desktop to do whatever you want. And also with gnome-shell, come over to our web browser. If you search for gnome-shell extensions, you can go to extensions.gnome.org. And this is a really, really cool way, in my opinion, to browse extensions. So the GNOME team, just by visiting this website, has made this really cool way to install themes into your system. So, you can browse, themes based by popularity, based by the most recent. So let's see here. The suspend and lock button, for example. If you want to add a suspend and a lock button, you can use this extension to do it. Now, as you can see right here, there's this toggle that says the extension's either off or I don't have it installed. So if I flip it to on, it's going to ask me if I want to download and install this. I just click install. So now once I click install, I should probably have to close that out. Reopen up Tweak. Now let's go to extensions. And there it is, suspend and lock. And you can go ahead and tweak it if you want. So once I bring this little menu down, now you've got a lock, and there's also suspend options here in the menu. So again, this is how versatile gnome-shell is. I actually prefer a GTK-based interface. I like the look of GTK apps, and as opposed to Qt. So that's another reason why I like GNOME. It uses GTK apps. So this is what I'm using right now and why. I think it's fantastic. I'm having a great time using this particular desktop environment. gnome-shell is really, really nice. Now, I will be upgrading to the newer version of gnome-shell. So if we open up Terminal here and type in gnome-shell version, we see that right now we're running 3.12.2, which is not the most current version of gnome-shell. We're in the 3.14 range. So I will be upgrading to that as soon as it comes out, and I will be, as far as I can see, sticking with gnome-shell for quite a while because I'm just enjoying it that much. So that's kind of a brief overview of the Linux distro I'm using right now and the desktop environment and why. Leave your thoughts below on what you feel about gnome-shell. I think it has come a long way since its first inception, but I feel like it's still kind of falling short in some areas. But overall, I find that it really is conducive to how I get work done. One final note, I can't stand this notification area down here. I like the implementation that was present in actually the very first iteration of gnome-shell. The way you activate it is they basically call it a pressure sensor. So you kind of move your mouse cursor against the bottom of the screen as if you were adding pressure, and that's going to reveal the notification area down here. I think that, the icon sizes are way off. You got these kind of obnoxiously big icons down here. It just doesn't look quite right, in my opinion. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this down here. I also liked it when they had messaging integrated a little bit in more of a slimline way in overall into the system. But I am having a good time in gnome-shell. I'm enjoying my experience. The base of Ubuntu 14.10 is kind of irrelevant. I could use gnome-shell on anything, like on Fedora, OpenSUSE. It doesn't really matter. I'm using Ubuntu 14.10 right now. It's just because it's very quick and easy to set up. But I'm mainly using this distro because of gnome-shell. So leave your thoughts and comments in the video comment section below. And until next time, we will talk to you guys later.